What if saving more money was actually the wrong goal? Two households, identical paychecks, identical years of effort, but 10 years later, one has nearly twice the financial cushion of the other. The difference wasn't discipline, it wasn't sacrifice, and it had nothing to do with finding better deals on groceries. It came down to understanding how to save money smarter, where the money went, and when. Let's set the stage. We have Household A and Household B. Both earn $65,000 a year after tax. Both have roughly the same monthly expenses: rent, utilities, food, transportation. And here's the key detail. Both households save exactly 15% of their take-home pay every single month. That's about $812 a month going into savings. Same income, same savings rate, same decade of consistent behavior. On paper, they should end up in the same place, but they don't, not even close. And to understand why, we need to look at the mechanics underneath the surface, because this is really a story about how money actually works, not just how much of it you set aside. Household A does what most people do. At the end of each month, after all the bills are paid, they sweep whatever is left into a standard savings account at their primary bank. Some months it's exactly the 15% target, some months it's a little less because life happened. A car repair, a birthday dinner that got out of hand. Their savings account earns somewhere between 0.01% and 0.5% interest annually, which is typical for a big bank savings account. They feel good about saving. They have a growing balance. But here's what's happening mechanically. Their money is sitting largely idle. Inflation, which historically has averaged around 2 to 3% per year in many developed economies, is quietly eroding the purchasing power of every dollar in that account. After 10 years, Household A has put in roughly $97,000 in contributions. Their account balance with minimal interest sits just barely above that number. Maybe $99,000 to $100,000 depending on the exact interest rate. They saved diligently for a decade and essentially broke even against inflation in real terms. That's not a savings failure in the emotional sense. They were incredibly consistent. It's a structural failure. The vehicle they chose didn't work with time, it worked against it. Household B saves the same $812 a month, but they make two different structural decisions from day one. First, they open a high-yield savings account, the kind offered by online banks that, during various periods in recent financial history, have offered rates anywhere from 1% to over 5% annually, depending on the interest rate environment. This alone makes a measurable difference, but it's not the main story. The bigger move is that Household B splits their savings. A portion, let's say $500 a month, goes into a tax-advantaged retirement account, specifically a Roth IRA, which in the United States allows investments to grow tax-free. They invest those contributions into a low-cost, broad index fund. Not a specific stock pick, not a trending sector, but a passive fund that tracks a wide market index. The remaining $312 goes into the high-yield savings account as an accessible emergency buffer. Now, if you're finding this breakdown genuinely useful, hit the like button. It helps more people discover this kind of mechanics-based content. Back to Household B. Because the Roth IRA contributions grow tax-free, and the index fund historically reflects the long-run behavior of a broad market, which over multi-decade periods has trended upward, the compounding effect is dramatically different. We're not predicting any future return because no one can do that responsibly. What we can say is that tax-advantaged compounding on invested assets behaves fundamentally differently from cash sitting in a low-yield account. After 10 years, the math, using conservative, historically grounded assumptions, produces a combined balance that can look meaningfully different, sometimes by tens of thousands of dollars, compared to Household A. Same contributions. Different architecture. So why doesn't everyone just do what Household B does? This is where psychology and mechanics collide, and it's genuinely fascinating. The default savings account feels safe because it's familiar, it's local, it's visible on the same app where you check your checking balance. There's a cognitive comfort in seeing a number that only goes up. Investment accounts, by contrast, fluctuate. They go down sometimes. and that volatility triggers loss aversion, a well-documented psychological bias where losses feel roughly twice as painful as equivalent gains feel good. Research in behavioral economics, particularly the work of Kahneman and Tversky, established this decades ago. So people avoid accounts that show red numbers, even temporarily, and park their savings somewhere that feels stable, even if that stability is quietly being hollowed out by inflation. The second psychological barrier is what researchers call the status quo bias. We tend to keep doing what we're already doing unless there's a strong external push to change. The default at most banks is a low-yield savings account. You have to actively seek out a high-yield alternative, actively open a Roth IRA, actively choose an index fund. Each of those steps feels like friction, and friction in personal finance is enormously powerful. It stops people cold. Understanding these biases doesn't mean judging anyone. It means recognizing that a savings strategy that works has to be designed to run with human psychology, not against it. Automation is the classic tool here. Setting up automatic transfers so the money moves before you ever see it removes the willpower equation entirely. Household B's approach works partly because it's built to be boring after setup. Here's the core insight this case study is really driving at. For years, personal finance advice has centered almost entirely on the savings rate. Save 10%, save 20%, save more. And savings rate matters. We're not dismissing it. But where to put your savings is an equally important question that gets far less airtime. The vehicle determines the trajectory. $1 in a near-zero interest account is not doing the same job as $1 in a tax-advantaged invested account, even if you saved both dollars with equal effort and equal sacrifice. Timing matters too. Starting the tax-advantaged contributions early, even with small amounts, allows compounding more years to work. $1 invested at 30 is structurally different from the same dollar invested at 40, not because of anything magical, but because time is literally the input that compounding feeds on. That's the mechanics. Household A and Household B both did something admirable. They saved consistently for 10 years, but only one of them understood that saving money effectively isn't just about the rate. It's about the placement, the tax structure, and the time horizon. The gap in their outcomes isn't a story of one being disciplined and the other being lazy. It's a story of financial architecture. So the next time someone asks how to save money smarter, the answer isn't just save more. It's look at the structure. Are your savings in a vehicle that works with time or one that quietly loses ground to inflation? Are you using tax-advantaged accounts where they're available to you? Have you separated your short-term accessible buffer from your long-term compounding engine? These are mechanical questions, not motivational ones. And understanding the mechanics, the way Household B did, is what separates a growing financial cushion from a decade of hard work that barely keeps pace. We'll keep breaking down how money actually works on this channel, so if that's the kind of content you want to see more of, subscribe and leave a like. It genuinely helps us keep going. See you in the next one.